Hi, everybody. This is Kubernetes Workgroup Device Management meeting for September 2nd. Um, all right, let's get going. I guess the first thing is, hey, congratulations, we got the release. The release team released last week, right? So 134 is out. DRA is GA. Very happy. Um, and so now we get to start on the next next mountain to climb. So I think. It looks like, I guess I'll show the agenda. Okay, so John H. put one item on, which is to put your talks above. So um, uh, we try to keep a little thing up here for things that are coming up where some of us might be there and meet in person. So if you've got talks at KubeCon North America or other events coming up, go ahead and add them up there. Other than that, I wanted to start looking at planning for next release. I think the December release a couple weeks shorter than normal, which makes it pretty compressed. Um, and we have a lot we want to do. So before we jump into the big spreadsheet, I'm going to reverse the order of these two. There was one thing I did want to raise. So we have one of the main things we want to do is get this extended resources KEP into beta. So this is an alpha in 134, and this is the KEP that allows the extended resources API to be satisfied by DRA drivers. So rather than having to run, the user having to split which API they use based upon which kind of plugins are installed on the nodes, the user can use either one. Obviously, the DRA API won't work unless there's a DRA driver, but if they use the existing extended resource API, so existing workloads and manifests out there that already use it, the administrator is free to upgrade to DRA plugins and drivers or whatever we call them, and still have those manifests work. So I think several of us have this as a high priority to get to beta. One of the key things in that's missing is if you have, because the current node resources, which is what handles the extended resource, the device plugin scoring, has scoring built in, then even if we don't implement any scoring in the dynamic resources plugin, the things that used to interpret extended resources and use them to bin pack will all of a sudden no longer do that, and you'll get a different spread, or even potentially a worse spread than you would prior to deploying the drivers. Part of the criteria or goals of the extended resources KEP is that there's no meaningful user difference, and the bin packing strategy would be a meaningful difference. So we are proposing that as part of that KEP, we implement some simple scoring for the dynamic resources plugin in order to maintain that existing node resources behavior. We do not propose to try to implement the very sophisticated KEP around scoring. Instead, just something with no real user input beyond whatever's available today in the existing node resources one. And I'd also, as part of that, one of the big issues we have with the prioritized alternatives KEP is the same thing, that it makes the decision purely on a node local basis. It's supposed to be a prioritized list. If you can't get me this, get me this. If you can't get me that, get me the next thing. And it does that, but it does it purely on a node level. I'd like that ordering to be factored into the scoring as well. So then a node that satisfies it using the second sub request has a lower score than or a worse score than the node that uses the first sub request. So again, no expectation of user tweakability here, but I wanted to raise it here because this is like kind of a deviation from our earlier discussion, and we're not going to do the big scoring cap anytime soon. But we did want to introduce some scoring. Any thoughts there, Patrick?
Yeah, well, you can add the binding conditions, which already did some small tweaks along the same line of thoughts for the choice of devices. With binding conditions, we implemented a heuristic that sorts the slices based on whether they use binding conditions or not. And that's purely a one-time thing upfront before we do the full search. And I think it's useful, and it has the same properties that you just described, that it doesn't really need a new API. It's just using the available information and makes the result more useful. So overall, this what you proposed seems reasonable. I think the key point is that it only scores the one solution that we get out of checking one node. So we hopefully don't increase the overall complexity of a search, which makes it tangible, I think, and realistic. I'm not sure what exactly you can do with scoring for extended resources, but as long as it is basically just giving some weight to nodes depending on what was chosen, that could work.
Yeah, it doesn't evaluate. It doesn't score the individual device choice options. It doesn't score the solutions in a given node. It scores the solution we pick for the node. So it's still scoring the node. I don't know if you is here, if you can give more details on the plan there, but it's trying to replicate so that you get roughly the same result. It's not going to be exact because it can't really be, but it's going to be roughly the same result you'd get out of the existing node resources scoring.
Why can't it be exact? And just
Well, maybe it can in the simplest cases. I don't know. I haven't looked at the details, but if you think about you can have a device class that only selects 3 of the 5 that might have been advertised all as 5 before. Like, so, right, like the way we count might shift a little bit depending on the cell expressions used.
I see.
I don't know that for a fact. It's speculating. Yeah. I don't want to guarantee exactness.
Fair enough. Well, yeah. It's also the resource might be advertised slightly differently. I think that's what it would boil down to. It might not be the exact same representation for the device, and so yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So, all right. If there's no other questions or comments on that, and no objections, I think that we'll proceed with that. And then I'm prepared to jump into this planning. I have not. I updated some of this, and I know other people stuck some things on. I know that I'm still working on putting together a solution for something we need internally that's going to likely result in at least one more cap or changes to existing caps, maybe not a new cap. Just to say this isn't it's not final even as it is. All right, this is not at all legible, is it? Okay. Can you guys see that? I made it full screen.
It's good now.
Yeah. Okay, it's okay. All right, so we don't get the comments though, which is annoying. So, and I can't see hands or anything, so just blur things out. All I see is my full screen here. So here's what we achieved in 134, which is pretty incredible. And then for 135, I discussed it with different owners of the different things, marked it. I think there's still some comments in there for 1 or 2 of these that we are waiting on. And then there's others that just are still uncertain. But I think I'll just go through these unless somebody has a better idea. And people just pipe up, or maybe Patrick or Kevin, you could like manage the hands and just, because unfortunately when I'm displaying full screen, I can't see anything.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So resource claim status. We want to take that to stable. I don't think there's much controversy about that. And then
Is that only usable by multi-networking? I don't remember the details of what's in the status, just because it's
that's
some
the
mention there in the
main
note.
motivating use case, but no, it's not. It's usable by
Okay.
anybody.
Yeah. It's,
There's a
well,
there
what
is.
it,
Go ahead.
So the main goal is that when we move all the networking people to the array, there is this need of, oh, how do we standardize for people want to create services or want to get the IPs in, to share the IPs because some drivers export these IPs. So the decision is we standardize in this output. Everybody can go to the resource claim and we can create compatible things that depend on the IP.
mhm. Yeah, if I remember last time I looked at it, you can put anything you want in there though, right? Like there's a few network specific fields, but in general you can put whatever you
Correct.
want in case you want to just store some status.
There's a field for network data, and there's a field that's just an arbitrary raw extension that you can put whatever you want in.
Mhm.
But if you have a common field, then everybody can create. So the main use case was services, right? People want to add an additional need and they want to parse this output. If we have a common field, everybody can write the logic to parse these IPs, right? They know this interface has these IPs in this field. If we do everything custom, every driver need to
They'd have to
implement
have their
their
own
own.
CRD, basically, is what you're saying. The alternative would be
Right.
a custom CRD, and then someone would have to know about what that was called and what the fields were. And, yeah, okay.
That's why we took the minimum and the basic. I think that is IPs and the MAC or something. Just the two fields that are not controversial in network.
Hmm.
We
Yeah.
took a minimalistic because we know everybody need to use that, and we avoid this scope creep with all the networking stuff that is not relevant.
Yeah, and the fields are they're actually separate fields for network data and for other data. They're not a one of, so you could populate both if you had like your own stuff too, right? Or if you're not a network driver, you can just populate the data field, which is a raw
Yeah,
extension.
I'm just trying to think how I might use this. I guess
Yes.
we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not. Nothing's jumping out as obvious, but yeah. Okay.
There are two use cases. One is with the NICs that I have some internal team that wanted to do observability, so they want to get IPs and correlate with other things. And the other is the one that Lionel is working, that is the multi-network. If you attach multiple NICs, you want to create services, so you need to get these IPs and create an endpoint slice and all the stuff.
Mhm.
So with this, you can have a generic controller and you don't need everybody or every vendor to implement their controller and share in a custom format that is not compatible. Those are the two main
Yeah.
use cases we were driving.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
and
think we
the
use-
driver's pulling down the claim anyway, so you've got easy access to that status as well.
Yeah, it's mostly written by the driver, right? That status actually, but yeah.
Yeah,
Device status written by the driver. It's actually we already had resource claim status, right? But this is a section in it.
These extra fields. Yeah.
Yeah. And then admin access. So the plan is to bring that to stable as well. So prioritized alternatives. I have a question mark there. I don't know, Morton. What do you think? Are we stay in beta this release, right? That's my. I don't think there's a reason to stable yet.
Yeah, I think so. There's other things that I think we should prioritize over getting this to stable. So
Okay. Well, maybe somebody did edit it. I was going to say maybe somebody can edit. Okay. Then, or did I? No, I switched slides. There we go. Yeah. Yeah. I think anybody in the workgroup management mailing list should have edit privileges on this. So I think. So if you can go edit, somebody can go edit that. Patrick, I think we talked about this. You want to take taints and tolerations to beta, right?
I would like to, but I'm aware that there are ideas for enhancing the feature and changing its API. So this might not be feasible.
Okay.
We'll have to see how intrusive the changes are and whether we are comfortable to get them merged early and then get some feedback to promote to beta later. But I'll probably, in the cap at least, try to get it to or treat it as beta.
Okay. Yeah, at least let's get through the cap cycle and we'll see if we have if we. You're talking about the health status stuff, right? Whether we use it for that as well.
Yeah, there are other relationships to other caps that are ongoing, like health status was one. Yes.
Okay. Partitionable devices. So priority wise, so from my point of view, priority wise is the extended resources is top priority. But what do you think, Morten, on the partitionable? And Kevin, obviously you have an interest in this as well, trying to get that to beta.
Yeah, I'd like to see us at least try, but I agree with you. Extended resources is number one, and then this would be number two from my perspective.
Okay.
Yeah, and Red Hat also has some interest in partitionable devices and is willing. I think we've discussed with some folks about helping out with that as well. So obviously that doesn't necessarily help on the review side, but on the implementation side, we would be willing to help.
Okay, awesome. We could then, so that's some more hands we might have. That's great. Mixins. I'm proposing here alpha. There's a kind of a big change I want to make here. I'm not sure on the priority here. The way mixins work today is you publish. Oh, this is for partitionable too. This would be one thing that might make partitionable have to stay in alpha. So maybe people will disagree with the importance of this, but so today with partitionable devices, for example, we publish these counter sets and they're scoped to the slice. Similarly with mixins, the implementation we have today, which didn't quite make alpha in 134, publishes the mixins and the mixins definitions are scoped to the resource slice. The thing is, a resource slice is really an arbitrary chunking of a resource pool, which we don't have an actual representation of in the API server other than sort of this denormalized set of resource slices. Conceptually or semantically, both the counter sets and the mixins may make more sense at the pool level than at the slice level, but we put them at the slice level because enforcing validation was challenging, couldn't be done at admission time basically unless they were in the slice. But at least for this is part of this thing I'm working on to work through. I think that I'm probably going to really need the partitionable devices at the pool level for certain sets of multi-node logical devices. And and I don't think it limits existing use cases because you can change the names of these. And then to manage the validation, I think Patrick and some others and I have been, there's an issue out there. We were discussing it. We may simplify our validation. Our validation is kind of complicated right now. We try to validate total numbers of these things because if we limit, there's so much flexibility in the API. If we limit each field, we still get, we either have really draconian limits or we get the maximum possible size of a slice is ridiculous. So it exceeds etcd limits. So we sort of like are trying to figure out how to balance this. And Patrick had the idea, why don't one thing we could do is today in the resource slice, we have devices and the resource slice spec itself is actually a one of devices and there's no other options. And so we could actually put mixins and counter sets as siblings in a one of to devices. And then any given resource slice, you're either has devices in it, which have references to mixins and references to counter sets, but no embedded counter sets and mixins. It has mixins or it has counter sets. And the validation, I think, becomes much simpler. So that's the discussion going on right now. So if anybody, like Peter, if Red Hat has an interest in partitionable, we should talk about your use cases and make sure that these potential changes make sense for you as well.
I think when I talk, Peter can jump in, but when I talk to Red Hat, they're mostly interested in us getting our dynamic MIG stuff working. So it's
Okay.
really
Definitely.
us getting this stuff, in for GPUs.
Okay.
Um,
And dynamic MIG doesn't really depend on this change I'm talking about.
It does and it doesn't. It depends on how big how many in newer GPUs. There's more MIG devices that are available, which then makes the state explode a bit more. Which means
Okay.
that in a given slice, we might not be able to fit all of the MIG devices plus it's one GPU, even in one.
Wow. Okay.
Along with all the counter sets in one single slice.
Right.
And so if we were forced to push the counter set into a different slice and then reference that from one that just listed the devices, that would probably help a bit here. And because then I could even split that across multiple slices for the devices, all referencing the counter set in this other one. The weird thing comes if you have a small set of things, and now you are forced to split the counter set into one and the device into another, rather than right now. It's nice to see them top to bottom in one slice. But
True.
Yeah, I'm
that's the
sometimes
only thing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sometimes
I was gonna say
wondering
that's the
whether
only weirdness of it. It's just a weirdness rather than a functionality thing, I guess. Yeah.
perhaps
ahead,
it's worth asking our API reviewers and API machinery how strict they are really about this must fit into a certain guaranteed size. Because ultimately, if we could just say the DRA driver is responsible for creating slices that are below a certain limit, we don't need to enforce any of these slice sizes the way we do currently. The downside is that if a DRA driver doesn't follow those recommendations, they may end up with a slice that is large and works in the cluster that they tested on, but not somewhere else. And I'm not sure how strict that limit really is.
We could discuss it. I think it's I still want it on a per pool basis for various reasons. So, but that could mean we could, we wouldn't have to make it a one-off. We could make it just a series of fields.
Right.
But I think they're going to be fairly strict on that. But I don't. It's worth talking to them. I mean, endpoints used to do it, right? Endpoints used to be able to spill over, and like that's why we have endpoint slice now, right? Because we couldn't represent large enough services.
Well, you need the ability to do it,
right? Sure.
But if whoever creates those objects is responsible, or does it without without running over the limit, and checks that themselves, then it would be okay. It wouldn't be a problem in practice.
Right. Well, we should raise it with them. It's a good idea.
Antonio has his hand up.
Yeah, which limit are you talking? The one in each city that we have the cap?
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, that is scary. And we had this problem with endpoints. Endpoint was capped to, I don't know, 1,000.
Yeah.
And the other is the bitmap of the allocator that was already capped.
Yeah. The problem is whether we need at the API level to ensure that at validation time we are certain that the protobuf encoding will fit, or whether we can just let things pass through and then fail during encoding if it's too large.
I would think the proper, from a systems level point of view, the way I would think the right way to do it is that the API server, when it receives an object, because you can configure this in etcd, right? Like it should check what the etcd. I don't know if you can do this, but presumably you can check what size it's configured in your etcd, and if it exceeds it, you reject it. But like the individual API validation doesn't do it. It's just a basic, like, is this object too big? Or if I try to write it to etcd and it fails, I kick it back to the user. But I don't know I don't know the API machinery well enough to know if that's like unfeasible.
One problem is that we have the driver writing the spec, creating the object, and if they go above the limit, we end up with a resource where we can't add a status anymore. in the future. So currently we have, I think, a one megabyte limit, and we set
Mm.
aside a certain amount of memory for a future status. And if we allow, if we move the
In the
responsibility
status sub-resource, is that not stored separately in etcd? They're stored together?
No, it's not. It's not. It was theoretically, that was part of the original design, that this could be done, but it's not done right now, and we pretty much gave up on that idea. Status is now guaranteed to be preserved at the same level of reliability and together with the spec. Tim Hawken had a cap on that.
Yeah, I remember the same level of reliability. I didn't realize that actually meant, right, they're stored in the same object.
It pretty much means that.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, different hands. Morten?
I think Alexander was first, so.
Yeah.
Sasha?
If I remember correctly, the problem is not really etcd server side, but also gRPC. We saw in ttrpc implementation, I think it was copied as is from gRPC, what request size is having some limit, like few megabytes. So it might be a bit deeper than just etcd.
Okay, interesting. Are there other hands? Sorry, I'm only seeing this.
Yeah, Martin's next. Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say for partitionable, there's also an issue from the autoscaling team around some challenge they had with like handling like MIGs. So I was hoping to start looking into that this week, but there's something we also need to address probably as part of looking at beta.
Okay, if we make this API change with counter sets, we probably need to stay in alpha again. Because it's considerably different than the API.
Yeah,
we might have to. It's different enough. We might have to burn. I don't even know we can do conversion really. Maybe we can, because you create two objects instead of one. Like it's like really, it's quite a difference.
Yeah, we might also again see if mixins and partitionable, if there should be separate caps or should be the same. We've been going back and forth a little bit, but
well, we split them so that we could alpha the one without the other. But if we make this change, probably we should just bring them back together. But
yeah.
Yeah, so this is Kevin H. I see a lot of features requested for SIG scheduling. Do we have like an idea of like how much capacity those approvers can take for these?
So that's a wonderful question. And because they also have some of their own priorities. Workload aware scheduling is a topic that's heating up. Gang scheduling in upstream is heating up as possible things. So we will work with them. Morten and I work pretty closely with, I think right now, both of we have Kenzie, who I don't remember where he is, who he works for. But anyway, at least one of the approvers, two of the approvers are at Google. So we work pretty closely with them. Like, we talk to them several times a week at least, if not more often. So in that sense, we have some idea of their capacity, but we will have to review this whole list, and they may balk at the quantities.
Yeah, maybe for this table it'd be helpful, like having like the priority for this group of like which ones I think you all have it in your head. I mean, I know it sounds like what's the one? Extended resource request is highest priority, and maybe the promotions to stable, but maybe like that helps us like kind of prioritize, like, because looking at this, I don't know which scheduling ones like we are saying, hey, this is more important than this one, right?
Right. Well, extended resources definitely, and we've actually already started. Like you had a meeting last week or the week before even, I think, with some of the scheduling approvers to like get their guidance and know, so they know what's coming. So I think like the scoring thing came from them, right? Max Match is like, we need this scoring or we're gonna break the bin packing, right? So
like thankfully we are keeping that in. We are engaging early with them. But it's a great point, Kevin. After this call, I can go and order these better because they're just kind of arbitrary order. They were ordered based on like the release cadence, roughly. I don't know if there's any other.
I mean, order is fine. I was also even thinking for like 1.35, just if having like a like a level of priority on these that we want to like, because it might be. I mean, it's up to you. Whatever's easier for you, because I know each release we might want to have a different priority order.
For sure. Yeah. Okay.
Anyway.
Good point. Thank you.
Hi, this is Geeta. I had a couple quick comments. So we are also interested in partitionable devices. We will be interested in the multi-host case. So tag us if we can help out in any way. There are two things about it I want to bring up. There is that multi-host user story that we have talked about before in earlier meetings. I guess that reserved for might be related, but I'm not sure. But some UX for handling multi-host, which probably is not core DRA, but it's required for the end-to-end flow, the way I see it, to instantiate at the right level. So question about how are we tracking this, or
you talking about resource claim template in the workload controllers, like job set? Is that what you mean?
yes. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. That's a great question. It's not even on here because they're not caps. At least the ones in job set and leader worker set aren't caps, right? Or they're caps in those projects. They're not caps in KK. But
we could still track them here, though.
Yeah, we could still track them. We probably should do that for sure. Yeah, because those are important. Yeah, I agree, Geeta. Those are important.
Yeah, but I think Geeta's at least point from previous calls was like having it as a more generic way, or do we go with workloads are implementing these individually? Because like I know that she also is an issue in Kubernetes enhancement about this. That's more like a general solution.
Yeah, and haven't finalized is what I walked away with last time. If it's still open discussion, but the way I see it, our customers are gonna need some UX end of the day to leverage partitionable devices correctly without the vendors having to go extra mile and put out something. So yeah, if it could be in this list, we will be happy to help out and discuss implementations as we go along.
Yeah, seems great. So one of the things, that thing that I'm trying to work on, and I made some progress last week, but not enough. It's right related to this. I think we talked about this before last meeting. Right, somehow representing these within. Yeah, we the thing is, for the workload controllers, right? They have their own life cycle, and they manage the life cycle of their resources. So whatever resource claim gets created needs to be managed at with that same life cycle, right? Just like resource claim controller today manages the resource claims it generates from templates with the pod lifecycle. We need to do it with those workload life cycles and the specific configurations. I think the comment on, sorry, my memory's coming back out. The comment, Geeta, we went back and forth with on the issue was like for certain types of workloads, as I understand it, it's not like you can easily predict. Like the workload has to give information about which set of pods go together. It's not necessarily directly like in leader worker set. It's not like directly the stateful set, right? It might bridge multiple stateful sets in a weird way, was what I understood. And Kevin Hanna might be able to explain it better. But so I haven't figured that out yet personally. I don't know if anybody else has how that would work. Eric Toon is talking about, and I think he'll be presenting to SIG scheduling, but I think he's got a cap out there or a document somewhere, and he's talking about pod groups. We might be able to use pod groups like as a lower level primitive that we track reserved for with, and we track these resource claim templates with, and then those workload controllers would instantiate pod groups rather than those directly. But you're right, it's still kind of up in the air. Maybe we need to. I'll talk to Eric. Maybe we need to have like a focused meeting on that, and just get together anybody who's interested and kind of try to hash through some of the design. This is when.
Yep, sounds good. Yeah, so I
And how-
remember two things. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Please go ahead.
So I remember two things. Kevin H brought up that what you said, like it's not stateful set. So even for workload, it's hard. It's not straightforward to when to instantiate. And the second requirement is what Kevin Cruz has written on that issue, where there are other CRDs, MPI job, for example, which are also popular. So ideally, we want to solve for that as well. If we go down the road where every workload has to update, then so be it, if that's the right thing to do in the long term. But our customers might look for support for those as well.
Right. Okay. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you'd have to have it integrated in each project separately. But if we can at least define a common API that someone can embed, the same way that they embed pod specs, they can embed this thing, and then that becomes standard across all of them. That would probably work.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
And another one I want to bring up quickly for a proposal for maybe Alpha. I don't know where it is today. Queue support. I think there is a PR out already.
Kevin H maybe can give an update on that.
Yeah, I mean, LA from NVIDIA has been leading that effort. It's on the hope would be to get that in by middle of September as alpha. We are actively reviewing that one. I don't know if we want to track that here, but that is on my radar for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, he was
up to the team.
I think he was close to finishing it before the last release of Q, but it got deprioritized because we needed to get the scale testing done for the upstream Kubernetes feature, and so it was one or the other, and we wanted Kubernetes to have DRA go GA, and so the Q stuff slipped. But yeah, it sounds like, Kevin, it's on track for this next one. You guys are reviewing it now.
Yeah, I think yeah, it's hopefully, I mean, the PR is there. It's looking pretty good. Some of the maintainers for Q just got back from, European August vacations. So everyone is back to working again. So that should get further along. But yeah, that's on my radar for sure.
I know Ali's on vacation until the end of the week, but he'll be back next week. So that seems like plenty of time to get it ready by mid-September. Yeah.
All right. Yep. Thank you.
And so then, Geeta, the one near the bottom here are constraints with cell. We talked about this last time.
So yeah, that one will evolve into something more purpose-built, I guess, versus something as generic as a cell expression.
Right.
So I'm working on drafting initial proposal for it, which basically the UX kind of goes a new type of constraint that it's connected. So it's gonna evolve. Probably the title will change, but we can maybe make that change after I put out the doc and get some initial feedback.
Yeah, we can leave this create a new cap for it, and this one will just like for sort of like, posterity, like this way people, if they're like, well, we want to do this again, we can point to this cap and go, well, we thought about this before and it had really bad scaling properties. If we have a new cap for the new thing, then we don't lose that state.
Sounds good.
Yeah. Okay. See, there's just a lot of work, and I don't know how there's no way we're going to get all this done in this December release, but that's why we prioritize. Okay, so we talked about 5004. That's the top priority for Google and NVIDIA. I don't know about anybody else. And for 4680, resource health status in pod status. I don't know if JP's here, but I think I talked to him. He said beta. He wants to take it to beta. The next one, how much time do we have left? And again, please, somebody else manage hands because I'm not seeing anything. The resource slice status for device health tracking. So this one, John's not here. He wants to do alpha. He's got a cap already underway, but I think part of the discussion is whether taints are sufficient. I haven't really looked at that. I don't know if there's anybody who can give an update on the status of that.
Patrick, have you?
As you said, it's closely related to where do we store health information, who publishes it, and does it even need to be in the resource slice status? Because if it's coming from the driver, it would be more suitable not in the resource slice status, but rather in the spec of a resource slice. And then the question is, what kind of information needs to be published? Does it need to be new fields, or can we just say vendors standardize some attributes? So the whole question of where to put the information is still pretty much up in the air. One of the ideas was that, well, we want to cover publishing health information externally outside of the driver, which makes resource slices, well, resource slice spec unsuitable. Resource slice status would work, but it's problematic for the size reasons. So that's why I brought up device taints. Well, that could be extended to just have additional fields for health information combined with a no op effect, and then both the driver and the admin could publish a taint and say, okay, this is tainted. We don't know what the effect is, but here's some information about it. And that could go a long way towards solving the use cases of that cap. But yeah, we're not sure yet.
So what I would ask is that folks who have an interest in this, which I think is going to be almost everybody, please chime in on that, because it's clear we haven't figured out the right way to do it yet. And the thing that we have to figure out what would help us make the decisions between what Patrick was talking about. And I think that if we can enumerate really clearly the use cases, like, do we have external monitoring tools that are going to want to publish this information? Do we have external monitoring tools beyond the driver? When I say external, I mean outside the driver, that are going to respond to this information. And are they the same thing? You know, do we have both? Do we have one? Like, will help us. Like, who's doing the writes and who's doing the reads, basically, of this data, and what are they doing with it? So, I think it would be helpful.
So I can respond for NVIDIA GPUs right now. We do not want the DRA driver to have to touch the taints or write the health status or anything. We want something external to do that. Which is why I think taints would be more appropriate than something like the status of the resource size.
Okay.
But we can discuss on the cap further.
Yeah, let's discuss on the cap. And because then the other question is, like, are there going to be multiple things? Right. So if there's one thing that's writing it, then there's one field. But if there's multiple things, then taints, it's like you can have as many taints as you want. Well, maybe not as many, but we have like 4 or something you can have. But maybe, what is it, Patrick? There's a limit, right?
It's 4 in the device, a resource slice spec, and it's actually too low. I heard from some colleagues who are doing something in that space. They ended up trying to create device taint rules from the driver. And I think I still need to follow up. I think it was because of that limit. So but they also have the use case of publishing it through some external component. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
for one thing, this limit of 4 in the resource slice spec is something that I need to revisit because of that. And it's kind of goes to go towards the same direction as mix-ins, counter sets. We have really difficulties with controlling the size of a resource slice, and perhaps even the taints, even though they are published by the driver, perhaps they also need to be separate. That would be.
It could be a different one of in what we were talking about earlier.
kind of. As long as it's conceptually part of a pool, it could be. It doesn't need to be in this long list of devices where we have problems adding things.
Well, the thing is the slices, right? You can't have multiple actors creating slices.
No, you still need the device taint rules, but so we need both. We need the way for a driver to publish potentially many taints per device or many individual atoms of health information. That's the current problem. There's 4 and there's 6 different. I think it's 6 for some Intel hardware where we have 6 different attributes that all could indicate unhealthy, and we cannot store all of them with taints. Well, there's also the lack of information, the lack of user visible description. I think that's another aspect that's missing, and the no effect.
Right.
So
at some point, you start to, are they really quite the same thing or not? Yeah, this is the discussion. We only have 10 minutes left. We don't have time to go into it here, but as you can see, there's a lot of things to discuss there. I also wonder about whether we should build upstream, or in K-SIGs upstream, maybe not in KK, but in K-SIGs, some sort of a pluggable, problem detector for devices, or maybe becomes part of node problem. Like there's like, how are we what are the operational aspects of this too? We should think about. But at some point, we don't want to create a bunch of dependency hell. So I don't know. Okay, why don't we move on? Unless there's hands up that I can't see, let's move on. There's clearly a lot of discussion for 5283 that still needs to happen. Someone's got a alarm going on in the background.
It's mine. Sorry, I'll mute.
Okay. Device binding conditions. So Kobayashi is not going to be the one running this in 130 going forward in 135. I don't know if I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. The person taking over is here or not. I do know that there's a desire to take this to beta. I think the reviewer bandwidth and the scheduling team will be the gating factor probably. Although I also have part of that discussion of Morten and I have a really interesting use case for this that we might want to actually additionally make it something we can do. We can request binding conditions on the claim directly, not just in the resource slice. I don't know that, so, and then on top of that, there's this provisioning flow I want to do that may or may not rely on this. I really need to finish that this week.
We have a use case for at least the initial conception of this as well, in improving the compute domain stuff.
Okay. Yeah. So, but that would be Kevin using the existing exactly as it is.
Yeah, it can leverage the existing implementation.
Our change basically, right? We want to be able to mutate the image based upon which prioritized list subrequest gets taken. And so we could use binding conditions to have a controller that mutates the image. What
do you mean by image?
Sorry, the image in the pod spec, that container image.
Is it mutable?
To choose which one?
Yeah, image is mutable. Okay. So like if first subrequest gets picked, you use image A. If second subrequest gets picked, you use image B. And so basically once the node is picked, you know which subrequest is picked. And so that prebind is exactly when you'd want to make that change. And we can add but we wouldn't want this wouldn't apply to everything using that slice. So what we would want to do is actually in the claim, the user that's creating the claim that has the prioritized list would say, oh, verify the image based upon the request. They would just add a binding condition right there. And then this controller would see that. And then they would have to, in their config associated with the sub request, they would specify the image to use for that sub request. That's kind of the idea. So this kind of allows this.
So it's kind of a device specific reaction to having this binding condition met, and then you encode what you want done in that in the opaque config.
Yeah, exactly. So, so we'll be talking about changes there, and that might, unless there's an urgent need to get the existing thing to beta, that might make sense to have another alpha with those changes, and then otherwise you can always split it into a new cap, which would be possible, but more.
I'd say there's nothing urgent from us. It was more of a making it better than how it is today than an urgent.
Okay, awesome. I don't know if Peng is here for consumable capacity, but I know she wants to take that beta. That's also something we're interested in, but it's not, we already talked about what the top priority is for us. Reserved for workloads. This is important to us, but again, I'd like to get it to alpha. But this is the previous discussion we had with Kevin and Geeta about how to manage multi-host type things.
It's 256 is the limit. It was like 16. I can't remember what we up to.
256 for the
256. Okay.
Yeah, and our original motivation was TPU slice scale greater than 256. I'm not sure that's accurate anymore because our model's changing, but there are other use cases as well. I don't know, device attributes, and I know this was something that
this is something desired by KubeVirt. If you want to use DRA with KubeVirt, they want to have a standardized way of representing device attributes in something like a downward API. I don't remember the details. He's on vacation. He's on vacation this week.
Okay, so he's brought it up to me a couple times, and I'm like, let's do it. And so I don't know if he has time, but
yeah, yep. I know the use case is for KubeVirt. That's the motivating example.
Yes, I remember that. Yeah, and I imagine there's other uses for it, but that's the motivator. Okay, list types for attributes. So I added this one. This is a new one, and I'm hoping there's no owner on that. I'm hoping. I think both Everpeace and BG Chun both are interested. Pyongyang were interested in this, so I'm hoping maybe one of them will take it. But this is to solve the issue. So right now we can align a NIC and a GPU are both only associated with one PCIe root, for example. They'll just publish one. But a CPU could be associated with multiple PCIe roots. So if you want to align a CPU with a NIC along the PCIe boundaries, then there are architectures where the CPU can't publish that, it would have to pick one, like it has multiple. And so if we made it a list, we could publish those multiple, and then we would change our matching constraints and things. The hardest part of this, and Jordan and I talked about this the other day, I think the hardest part of this is that how we work with lists in Cell, and we think it's solvable, but we probably need to talk to the Cell team and really get into the details here. But I don't know if I've explained it well enough, but basically it's just saying right now we have attributes can be string, version, int, I think.
And bool.
and bool. And this would add, types like string list, version list, int list, probably. There's bool list doesn't make any sense, but
True and false.
exactly. True and false. Yeah. But so that's effectively the proposal. And then, so then an attribute, when you're testing it, like what do we do about we just standardize an attribute, right? We just standardize an attribute as a string. Now it could be a string or a string list potentially. And then the cell referring to it, what does it do with equal, right? And so it's, you either need to change and do a different strategized attribute and not change that. So there's like these issues of evolution of the cell expressions. There's issues of do we, on our standardized publish attributes, are they always exactly one type? In which case, like we've kind of burned a name, which is a bummer. Anyway, those are the kind of discussions I think we have to have. I don't know if either of those two folks I mentioned are here, but
I don't think so, but I know Sasha, I think you're still on the call. This is related to the PR that I pulled you into yesterday with the CPU PCIe root alignment with GPUs and index and whatever.
Yeah, but in general, getting the list type is very handy in modeling like complex topologies. Yeah, I completely agree with it.
Okay, so that's the last one I think that we're really seriously considering for this release. All these ones underneath it are I don't know what's happening with the one the 5322, but and John's not here, but the ones below that I think are all we're happy to defer to later, if ever. So we're out of time. I hope this was useful. I found it useful, and please. This doc's out there. It is editable by folks who are on the mailing list, I believe. Certainly it's commentable, but I think it's editable. And so if you see things that need fixing, please do. Otherwise, drill in on the links there and go to the issues and start making comments because there's a lot. So if there's nothing else, thank you, everybody, and have a great week.
Bye. Thank you.